The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
So it wasn't who was leaving on the jet plane with the Commanders last night for Spain. It was who wasn't leaving. Deron Payne wasn't leaving. His appeal turned down. Trey Amos looks like a good draft pick. Looks like he's going to miss the rest of the year. Broke his leg in the Detroit game. Terry McLaurin's going. Not going to play. Guess he's going to do some sightseeing. Jaden Daniels didn't make the trip, of course. Whew. And there's Joe Whitt, the defensive coordinator, or at least he's got that title. He doesn't have the defensive play calling responsibilities anymore. Wow. This is it's not a good situation. And at least you can say this. The game on Sunday will be over early, right? If it gets ugly, at least you'll have the rest of the day because it's a 9:30 a.m. kickoff. A lot to unpack with the Commanders and where they are right now for a team that went into the season with such high hopes off the NFC Championship game appearance that they would perhaps make the next step. The next step ain't going to happen. And we'll go through all their problems coming up. Meantime, Monday Night Football, Joe Buck trying to sell it, saying that's the most exciting scoreless first half I can remember. Yeah, I guess so. Eventually, the Eagles won the game 10-7, although not without some drama. And boy, if Nick Sirianni's decision had backfired, I would love to hear Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio today. Even with the success, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people bashing him. But figure this one out. 27 seconds left in the game. They're up 10-7. They're at their own 36-yard line. It is 4th and 6. That's automatic punting, right? 4th and 6. Instead, they go for it. They don't get it. And Brandon McManus, although he was kicking into the wind, had a chance to send the game into overtime. These days, 64-yard field goals are not ridiculous long shots. He missed, but still, the fact that it came down to a final kick where Philadelphia really had a chance to pin him back at that point, little nuts. And I'm not sure I'm buying what the explanation is from Eagles coach Nick Sirianni.
We're up 3. And I would have liked to be in a little closer to kick a field goal. But the closer we would have got, the more, again, you play every situation a little bit differently, but I think it was into the wind on that one. I knew the kick would have to be a little bit lower trajectory of a kick on that particular one. I got a lot of faith in our offense. It didn't work out on this one. We just didn't get it. But the decision, I stand put on that decision. Especially being up 3, because you go up 6, they're still going to need a touchdown, being a Hail Mary, everything like that. So we would have ended the game if we would have got that, and I got a lot of faith in our guys to be able to do that. But the reason I didn't kick the field goal again, being up 3, and also just this trajectory into the wind there on that particular one.
Now, Nick, you don't stand put, you stand pat. You stand pat with your decision to do what you did. You subject yourself to second guessing, especially if it doesn't work out. When it works out, people will kind of move on from it. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman calling the game last night, talking to Scott Van Pelt, as they always do after Monday night games, on that decision to go for it there.
Yeah, I mean, we're always questioning stuff like that up here, but we're still talking about it here during the commercial when we threw it to you and you take over. We're still talking about it, just kind of surprising. But they end up getting away with it. But to throw that pass downfield, they could have punted. That even booming it out of the back of the end zone, it's 15 more yards of field position. It surprised us, and it gave Green Bay a chance, but they couldn't do anything with it.
Troy, this Philadelphia team is so scrutinized, right? But as I said, they managed to just win and win and win. And they are the reigning champions of the world. I mean, it certainly gives us things to talk about and wonder what the hell is that about. They just win football games. What do you make of them right now?
Well, I still think they're a really good football team. I mean, it's not easy to win here at Lambeau. We certainly understand that. The defense, I thought coming into this game as we move through the rest of the year, the defense is only going to get better. I didn't expect that dominant of a performance that they had tonight in this ball game. But, yeah, this is kind of how they've been. I mean, it's not about style points, and they've never really been about that. And that's how this year has gone for them. I know the way they began the year, played a lot of really good football teams, played a lot of good defensive teams. They did again tonight. They found ways to win, and when you win those games like this one on the road against teams that you think are going to be in contention, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with Green Bay after this game. I mean, this is a type of loss. I mean, you could unravel on you in a hurry. Now they've lost back-to-back games, so we'll see. But I like Philadelphia. I like the toughness and the grit that they've shown, even though it doesn't always look pretty.
Not only have they lost back-to-back games here, Troy, their 3 losses this year. They gave up 13 to Cleveland, lost, 16 to Carolina, lost, and 10 here, lost. I wonder, can you be a championship team if your defense hangs those kind of numbers and you can't outscore?
Well, I've constantly heard that defense wins championships.
Exactly.
So, you know, when you hold a team under 17 points in today's game, teams win those games. I mean, They win a lot of those games. I think coming into this game, only 6 losses when that's happened, and 2 of those have been with the Packers. Now 3 of the 7 have been with the Packers. So the offense just hasn't been able to find their way. They haven't been at full strength. I know it's frustrating for everybody involved, but this is a concern right now, certainly, by the way that they came out and played tonight and what everyone anticipated to be a really huge game as far as what this is going to do at the end of the season.
Well, they just count them up, 7-2 right now, 9 games into the season. I think you would have taken that going into the year. Yeah, they're not scoring a lot of points, but defense getting it done. And Green Bay's defense, as they were talking about, should win a game when you only give up 10 points. But now the team is 5-3-1, and they're behind 2 teams in their division, Chicago and Detroit. And it's not what we expected, certainly at the beginning of the year when Green Bay just got better and really handled Washington in that second game. Of course, we thought Washington was a lot better than they've turned out to be. But, again, it's not how you win, it's how many you win. And at this point, Green Bay hasn't won enough, and Philadelphia has won enough at 7-2. Whether they're scoring enough points to be a championship team again, we'll have to see as we move further down the stretch. Meantime, not surprising at all yesterday. I mean, Dan Quinn had to do something, and this is how he opened up his news conference yesterday.
When something's not working, we shift from the question of why isn't it working to what do we need to do to get it right. And right now that'll call for some change. And I'll take over the role as the defensive coordinator and all that entails. Known Joe as my right-hand man for years, and he took the news like the pro he is. As a defensive staff, including Joe, we're all consumed by getting it right. And that's exactly what we intend to do.
Now, Whitt is not being fired. He's still on the staff, but he doesn't have the defensive play calling duties anymore. Dan Quinn has that. And look, this has been coming for a while. They've lost 5 straight games, the last 4 by an average of, or giving up a total of average 35.8 points a game. They're 29th in the league in scoring defense, meaning, points given up, and they're 31st in yards per play. It's taken a long time to get to this point, and obvious question from John Keim yesterday, why now?
I think now, just after watching and reviewing the tape, we felt off. You've heard me say that word, John. And so I thought this is the time to add into that and lean in. Joe and I have got a great vibe together, John. We've worked together, through our time in Dallas, and we'll lean back into that space where he'll help me along the way and all that leads up into the game and calling it into that space. So having Joe, and I been in that vibe together, we'll lean into that again, and we'll do that now.
Dan, what does this mean exactly for Joe's role going forward if you're handling play calling and everything that, defensive coordinator, what that role is?
Yep, so Joe will be involved all week, obviously with the rest of the staff and, planning and getting ready for the game. And then on game day, he'll be in the press box and, with the vision on the coverage and the things that we need to do. And so, like I said, Nikki, I'm fortunate that we've been in that battle rhythm together during our time together in Dallas. And so we're going to try to slip into that spot, as quickly as we can.
So Whitt still has a job, still on the staff, but Dan Quinn effectively is the defensive coordinator. And the way things are going, there'll be 2 new coordinators here next year. You can pretty much count on that. Cliff Kingsbury's going to get a job. There's just too many people who are going to want him either for college or the pros. He's right near the top of the list for the Giants, who fired Brian Daboll yesterday, so he'll be out of here next year, and then there'll have to be a new defensive coordinator. I don't think there's any possible way that Dan Quinn can take over the defensive play calling duties for the rest of the year, especially if things get better, and say, oh yeah, now Joe's ready to come back. So this is the first step to being out the door for Joe Whitt. They got to pay him anyway. I guess if he would have, put up a big stink about this and would have been obstinate about being demoted, that they would have just fired him. He's going to stay on the staff. It's probably an awkward situation, when he's around his players, that he's not calling the plays anymore. But this is part of the moving on towards next year. New offensive coordinator for good reasons and new defensive coordinator for bad reasons. As for what Quinn is expecting with 8 games to go, what the impact of this will be,
I'm hopeful that we'll see, kind of the execution, the consistency that we're searching for. And that's number 1, top of the pile, to get that part right. We've been digging for it. We haven't had it. We haven't found it. And so that type of consistency and execution, Scott, that's what I'm after. And that's the only reason behind the move. So that's what I'm going to have to chase first.
No, I don't know if you caught this. I want to get this quote right. Marcus Mariota said after the game, "I don't think we are who we think we are." So with that being said, do you think in a sense it's time to recalibrate expectations even from the fans and everybody in your building of kind of where this team is going forward?
I think that's a fair question after a difficult game, and we've got to dig in, man. Like I said, we've got to put everything we can, Scott, into this game and where we're at. There's the bye after that. But I'm not looking too far down the line. Like, how much better can we get this week, man? That's it. It's cool to have everybody going together. That's a big deal for us to have everybody together, go get our processes right, get our line of our football like we want to do it. It's going to be an awesome environment, but as far as like big picture stuff, I'm pretty locked in on the present one now. I'll have a little more space to do that during the bye. There's not a player that I respect more than Marcus, so his insights are usually spot on, and you'd have to ask him, but we're not hitting the mark. It's fair to say that we're not doing the things we need to do to be who we want to be.
So, road trip, and Tom Lovero's got a cute column about that today. I'll get to that in the 10 o'clock hour. The thing about, this trip, it's really who's not on it more than anything else, including Daron Payne, for being an idiot, an absolute idiot, and for Dan Quinn, who preaches brotherhood, culture, the whole deal. I mean, that flies in the face of it. This is a veteran player, the highest paid player on your defense, totally losing his cool because of a trash-talking wide receiver, and now you're not going to have him for a team that has been running the ball effectively, and Washington has been a sieve on defense, particularly in the run game, and you don't have a run stopper in there. Your top-paid run stopper isn't there, not because of injury, but because of stupidity. And it's not just he being missing. It's not just Payne being out. They've got 6 starters out for this game, starters who began the season. So you got 2 torn ACLs. This is like a partridge in a pear tree. 2 torn ACLs, 2 broken legs, 1 suspended, and 1 with a torn quad, I guess it is. So those guys are all going to be missing from a defense that wasn't that great last year, but thought to be good enough with a generational quarterback, and now he's not even making the trip. Jaden Daniels, you may have seen him on the sidelines before the game this past week, where he's got his arm in that brace. They have not ruled him out playing the rest of the year. They say they'll assess during the bye week, but I would expect him to play. I said there were 8 games to go. There's 7 games to go. There'd be 6 after the Miami game. I would not be surprised if he plays in the last 4 games of the year. But we'll see where that goes. But the 2 top wide receivers are both out. It looks like a totally lost season for Noah Brown. I mean, Noah Brown's played, 1 game this year? And they gambled on a guy who's got a history of injury, including missing the last part of last year. He made the wonderful play and was in the right place at the right time for the Hail Mary catch. But other than that, he's spent a lot of time on the injured list. I think that's why he was available but Houston decided not to keep him because you just can't count on him. So he's been out. And then Terry McLaurin, who spent the offseason complaining about his contract and that at 30 years old, he still was a very, very healthy player. He'd never missed a game in 5 years. And now this will be his 8th missed game in 9 games. It's a shell of a team, really. And what Quinn is going to try and do is to keep them together mentally, and I guess he's done a pretty good job of that. You're not hearing a lot of carping, a lot of leaks out of the locker room. You used to hear a lot of these things during the Dan Snyder era. You don't hear that, but frankly, it's a team that looks horrible. It's a terrible, terrible defense, and the offense is competent with a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota and no wide receivers. Treylon, what's his name? The wide receiver who had the most catches. He caught 30 yards worth of passes. Was their leading receiver, Treylon Burks. 3 catches, for 58 yards, but that ain't much either. 3 catches, 58 yards. He's not on the trip because he needs surgery on a finger. What do you got? So it's Miami, at least. It is a team that has the same record that they do at 3-7, but they seem to be back up on the upswing, and Washington is very down. But, things happen. Who would have thought that Buffalo would go to Miami this past week and get their doors blown off? So you can always hope. Coming up, more on the Commanders' mess in the next hour, and Jeff Passan with details on the big scandal in baseball and pitch fixing. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So what did this World Series do for baseball? Tom Boswell gushing about that in a column over the weekend. I'll go through the highlights of that. The Wizards, they're just the Wizards. Double-digit lead in the 4th quarter. They lost. We'll autopsy that. And Jeff Passan on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday with the rundown of just what's going on in baseball with this pitch-fixing scheme that may wind up with a couple of pitchers in jail. We'll talk about that and more. And the Commanders, some of them anyway, are in Madrid. I'll get that right, Madrid, for Sunday's game against the Miami Dolphins. They are still 2.5-point favorites, but man, oh man, they are out of bodies. They're 6 defensive starters, if you go back to the opening game, 6 starters who are not going to be in this game. 2 are out with torn ACLs. That's including Marshawn Lattimore. 2 are out with broken legs, 2 from the secondary. You got 1 who's out because of a torn quad. And now you got your highest-paid defensive lineman, highest-paid defensive player, Daron Payne, who's going to miss this game because he took a swing and punched in the head Lions receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's also going to cost him a hell of a lot of money in salary, but he did not get on the jet plane last night. You have Terry McLaurin on the plane. He'll be there. I guess he'll get to have some nice sangria and hang out a little bit, but he's not going to play. He's not going to play in this game. Jaden Daniels didn't make the trip, and they just don't have bodies. I mean, it's just a situation where they're putting street free agents on the field with a backup quarterback and a makeshift defense that's now going to be essentially coached by Dan Quinn. Joe Whitt still has a job. He's, I'm sure, going to be let go at the end of the year, but he's had his play calling duties taken away from him, and there they go. They're off on this trip, which I'm already seeing some pictures from some of the beat people that are there, and they've got these street banners that are up, like on the street signs, and there's pictures of Jaden Daniels up there. Well, Jaden Daniels didn't even make the trip. He'll be at home like the rest of us watching on Sunday for the 9:30 kickoff. Anyway, Tom Lovero's got a very cute column today, and it starts with the with the scene in Animal House when they have been kicked out of the Delta house. Remember that? And they're packing everything up, that they got double secret probation. They've broken too many rules. Dean Wormer has shut down the house, and they're, taking everything out, and somebody, one of the movers, drops a full bottle of booze, and it smashes on the ground, and John Belushi as Bluto starts to cry, and Otter goes, "Oh, wait a minute," and he finds another bottle that's almost full, tosses it over to Belushi. He chugs the bottle of Jack Daniels, and that leads to this exchange.
Christ. Otter. This is ridiculous.
What are we going to do?
Road trip.
Yep, road trip. And as Tom writes in his column, that's what the Washington Commanders are doing this week, taking Flounders Brothers Lincoln Continental to Emily Dickinson College to pick up the late Fawn Leibowitz's roommate and go to the Dexter Lake Club to see Otis Day and the Knights. Otis, my man. The Commanders collapsing, road trip. And, Quinn has talked about that. He said, it's not the worst thing for us. He talked about, that was a big moment last year. Remember when they played Cincinnati on the road on a Monday night and they had to play at Arizona on Sunday, and rather than go back to Ashburn, they flew directly from Cincinnati to Arizona, spent the week working out at Arizona State, and they won both games. And, they have the preseason stuff where they spend a couple of days, like they scrimmage against the Jets before playing a game, and did the same thing against the Patriots. So road trip is what he wants to do. I guess it's not like he planned it this way, but he's saying that it comes at a good time. Look, the defense is a mess. Missing all those starters. And then you got a Miami Dolphin team that's back on the upswing. They rushed for 197 yards in the upset last week of the Buffalo Bills. And Tom concludes with talking, and this is really a sea change for this organization for the first time, really, in a year and a half. We saw the end of the Ron Rivera era. The Ron Rivera era was bad. The coach-centric approach, which Dan Snyder took, was not good at all. His drafts were bad. The roster was a mess. And Adam Peters did miraculous work spackling things together and hitting on the quarterback as they did last year, and they had this incredible season going 12-5. Now the chickens have come home to roost, and the brotherhood that Dan Quinn has been preaching and doing it effectively, and the players are saying how effective it is and how they all, have each other's backs and everything, it's starting to crack a little bit. And he says, this is what Tom writes in his column, some problems appear to go beyond the missing players. The ones remaining, particularly defensively, seem incapable of playing NFL-caliber football, or even worse, not prepared, motivated, or mature enough. Veteran defensive tackle Deron Payne, named captain for the Lions game, was thrown out of it in the second quarter after he punched at Detroit receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been suspended, will miss the game. That culture that Dan Quinn has been building appears to be cracking like a pot in the kiln explosion that killed Fawn Leibowitz. If you don't remember the movie, this was all part of the road trip, that they looked in the obituaries and they saw that Fawn Leibowitz had been killed in a kiln explosion, and so they go to the sorority where she used to live, and one of the I guess it was Tim McIntyre says, I'm here to pick up Fawn for a date, and they have to tell her she died, and so then they have the sympathy of the others. I mean, if you know the movie, you know the movie, but. That's sort of a way to look at this, that he's banking a lot on a road trip. I mean, what else does he have at this point? There's not much else. You got a roster that's beat up. You got a team that's got a tougher schedule, and they just don't look anything like they did last year. And I think the biggest part of it is they don't have five. Not that they would have won that game against Detroit, because they clearly couldn't stop the Lions whatsoever. Gave up 540 yards, 546 of offense. But the way they did it last year was they were close enough, and Five would make a play. Five's not there. Five didn't even get on the plane. He didn't even need his passport. So that's where they are. That's where they are right now. Wizards, well, the Wizards are just the Wizards. They're playing the Detroit Pistons, who are the second game of a back-to-back. They played the night before. They're worn out. And looks like the Wizards are going to take this one. This happens in the NBA. A lot of it has to do with scheduling. They're up 13 in the fourth quarter. And then they're down to the last couple of seconds of the game, and there's a chance to lock it up with free throws. They're up with 2 points there, and if they knock down a free throw, game is they're up 3 points, and if the free throw is knocked down, then they win the game. But Detroit gets one more shot. They call the timeout, which you get in the NBA. They take it, advance it past half court. And when you hear who hit the shot, this will tell you a lot about how the NBA operates. But this is the game that looked to be well in the Wizards' hands, up double digits in the fourth quarter, going to overtime.
Jenkins from the corner.
Fergie Jenkins? No, Dennis Jenkins. Dennis Jenkins, symptomatic of what is basketball these days. He played at 3 different colleges, played at Pacific for a couple of years, then at Iona, then finished up at St. John's. And he has now played over the course of 2 years with the Detroit Pistons a total of 13 games. He played in 7 games last year. He averaged 1 point a game. This year, he's averaging 13 and a half minutes a game, but had not played in the previous games at all. DNP, coach's decision, is averaging 6.8 points a game. The three-pointer he hit to send the game into overtime is a rare three-pointer because he's only shooting an average of 1.7 a game. But he turns out to be the one who sends the game into overtime, and the Pistons prevail 137-135. I'll get to some crazy statistics for Cade Cunningham, but this was Dennis Jenkins with the biggest moment of his NBA career talking to the NBC crew after he had sent this game into overtime.
The play was obviously for Duncan, and then, I told myself if I got it, I was going to shoot it. Right. And he trusted me, and he passed me that ball, and I shot it with some confidence, and it went in.
Hey, Dennis, do you realize that you were inches away from stepping out of bounds?
You know what? I thought about it when they reviewed it. I was like, did I step out of bounds? Was I behind the three-point line? It was a lot of thoughts going through my mind, but shoot, I knew if I caught it, I was shooting.
It was going up. Mm-hmm. Because we looked from one angle, we like, oh, he stepped out, and they turned it to the other angle, and you had that heel in bounds. Congratulations, man. It's got to feel good.
I appreciate you.
Dane, it's Melo here.
Okay.
Getting the opportunity in a situation like this where all your guys are out, right, and your number being called, how prepared you had to be for that moment?
Yeah, I think it's easier said than done. A lot of people always say, we come in and they say, stay ready, stay ready, stay ready. But it's tough when you got no rhythm, no flow out there. You haven't been really battling with the guys. So it was just about my testament to my work and God. And then obviously this franchise and organization just trusted me and put me out there because I know what I'm capable of when I get out there. So I just had to believe in myself, trust my work, and shoot, just take it from there.
Indeed.
You certainly stepped up. You hadn't played in the previous 3 games, still had the confidence to come in and take that shot. We want to say, too, just what was required of this team. What are you guys talking about? Because this is the second game of a back-to-back. There were times when it seemed like maybe you guys were down and out. How did you power through?
Yeah, that's just what we're about. It's grit, literally. That's just all we tell ourselves. We came in, we was tired, we got in late, but none of that stuff matters. We know how big this game was for us, and we weren't going to let nothing stop us from getting this W.
So it's Dennis Jenkins off the biggest moment of his NBA life so far, sending the game against the Wizards into overtime with a 3 with 1.9 seconds to go, and then the Pistons go on to win it, 137-135 in overtime. Cade Cunningham, though, was the leading scorer for the Pistons. He had 46 points. Not unusual to see a 46-point performance in the NBA. He took 45 shots to get to 46 points. Now, he did other things. He had 12 rebounds, 11 assists, 5 steals, and the Pistons are good now. They've won 7 straight, and I think they're, 9-2 now, and that's top of the East. They were right there in the dregs with the Wizards a couple of years ago, and Cunningham has made a huge difference for them. but missing 31 shots. You got to be good to stay in the game, to hoist up 46 shots. That's understandable. But missing 31, it's the most by a player in the game since the merger, which took place in 1976. The last player to miss that many shots was Rick Barry in 1967. 1967. That's almost 60 years ago. He went 17 of 50 from the field. Of the 1,534 instances of a 45-point game in NBA history, Cunningham had the second worst field goal percentage, 31%, behind only James Harden, who shot 20% in 2019. Yeah, I mean, C.J. McCollum had 42 points, but he missed twice in the last couple of seconds, and the Wizards are now 1-10. McCollum's going to be traded. You know, he's a veteran guy on a big contract, and they're going to get rid of him. But this was not on my radar at all last night. I was watching the football game. I know this was a 7:00 start, but by the time all the good stuff happened here at the end, the football game was going on. They are going to play at Houston, and then they're home against Brooklyn on Sunday. It's you could say they're unwatchable, but a game like this, I guess, is watchable. The question is what is the purpose of this season? A couple of distressing things about this is that some of these young guys that they're counting on, those are things that they have to be concerned about. Bilal Coulibaly missed a third straight game with a calf problem. And Chris Middleton had returned from a one-game absence. He played 26 points and had 26 minutes, played 6 points. That's a guy that they have to keep healthy because they want to trade him. And they're charging prices that are, up from last year, even though they were horrendous last year and are tracking to be horrendous again this year. Just nuts. I get to conversation from the Monday Night Football game coming up. There was the Slim Reaper who caught the one touchdown pass for Philadelphia, and he talked to Scott Van Pelt. I'll get to that, but I was watching the Manning cast last night. I like the Manning cast. I like what they do, and they have Bob Iger scheduled. Bob Iger is, of course, the CEO of Disney, and there's an enormous dispute, not affecting me because I have cable. I'm one of the dinosaurs that still has cable, but people who have YouTube TV have not been able to watch the last two Monday night games. And, for the rest of the country and for, I guess, people who have YouTube and found another way to watch the game or the Manning cast of the game would be interested in what Bob Iger had to say about the dispute. Well, Iger comes on. He's at the game. He's wearing a Packers sweatshirt, and they have him on the Manning cast, and they're good with this. These guys are good. Peyton and Eli, they're glib, they're funny, but they never asked him about the dispute, and that's 2 weekends without it. Now, they're both smart. I don't know whether this was a prearranged situation where they said, okay, we'll get Bob Iger on, but we're not going to talk about this. Well, that's worse. If that was the decree that you're having the CEO of Disney on with this enormous dispute with YouTube, then don't have him on at all, because it looks worse than that you didn't ask him about it. If it wasn't discussed, the only thing I can figure here is that Peyton and Eli spent their football careers being asked questions that from time to time they had to dodge. So maybe they were fully prepared for a guy who didn't want to talk about this. But the only reason to have Bob Iger on, because he was a complete bore, it was a snooze fest. You have him on, you got to ask him about this. This is the number one story that's going on in television today, not necessarily the programming, but the distribution of the programming. And Eli did welcome Iger to the show with a question about watching sports on TV and said, how are we doing? But Iger didn't take it and say, well, we hope to expose you to more people once we get this settled. No, the rest of the conversation focused on how Iger fell in love with the Packers as a kid and some discussion of the tush push, which it's another game from last night where you have to say it's going to go away. This is the Eagles playing the team that tried to get rid of it in the last offseason, didn't have enough votes to do it, but this is another indication on TV they can't officiate it. So if you can't officiate it, don't do what you did in the past and say, well, we can't officiate it, so we're just going to let it go. You've got to ban it. You got to ban it. And I think this is another game that's going to put the final nail in the coffin on the tush push. That's just my view of it. Anyway, coming up, we'll hear a conversation with Devontae Smith and Scott Van Pelt. Smith catching the 1 touchdown pass last night, and where the Eagles are with an offense that isn't producing a ton of points, but playing good enough defense to have them at the top of the NFC East comfortably at 7-2. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
You may have heard me say this before, but a number of years ago, probably at least 20 years ago, when Tony Kornheiser doing the show on ESPN, and I was working as his sidekick, which I was fortunate enough to do for 14 years. For a short period of time, Larry King was a big fan of Tony's, wanted to do movie reviews. So Tony said, yeah, sure, come on and do some movie reviews. So he comes on, and he's watched Black Hawk Down. I remember Black Hawk Down, Jeremy Renner was in that, and so it was a very good war movie. And Larry King comes on, and he says, Tony says, did you like the movie? Yes, I liked the movie. Well, what do you like about it? He says, well, if you like war, it was war. There's a lot of war in that movie. And, that's a pretty good description of it. If you like defense, there was defense last night. One hell of a lot of offense. The Eagles beat the Packers in Green Bay 10-7. The 1 touchdown was scored by Devontae Smith in the fourth quarter. Smith coming on after the game with Scott Van Pelt to talk about a game that, well, let's face it, didn't feature a lot of offense.
Those are 2 great defenses, man. Both sides came out, played their best ball. I think at the end of the day it came down to, making a few plays that, that made a difference. And then at the end of the game, just being able, as offense, we pride ourselves on finishing with the ball in our hands. We didn't do that, but the defense went out there and closed it out.
About that, you've got the ball in your hand. It's 4th down, and I get it, taking a shot, because maybe you get a PI, and maybe 11 comes down with it, or if they look to you, maybe you do. But we were kind of surprised that you guys made the snap in that situation. Were you?
No, not really, man. We got all the trust in those guys, man. Whatever 1 and 11 want to do, if that's what they call, that's what they want to do. We rolling with it.
The touchdown that you scored, you and your team, you guys had 1. It was 2 plays. It happened like 77 yards in a blink. It's a screen to Saquon, and then it's a shot to you. On a night like this, when 7 might be all we need, right? If we get to 10, we might win. How does that sharpen the focus, understanding how important a touchdown is going to be?
Yeah, man, it takes a lot of focus, man. Like I said, you got to make those big-time plays. And, with the offense, the way we were struggling, all we were saying was somebody got to go out here and make a play. And, Saquon got the big run before I got the big hit.
I can't help but laugh, and I said it again to Joe and Troy. I mean, you guys are the most scrutinized team that wins and wins and wins, right? You got teams out here that are letting coaches go, and they got teams that are, they're out of playoff contention that thought they might be. I root for one in Washington. It's a banged-up group. I'm not going to make excuses, and that doesn't matter to this conversation. My point is you guys just win and win and win. Can you describe what it's like to be inside your group, looking outside at all the chatter that surrounds you all?
It only matters what we do inside the building, man. It's only about those guys that's in there, the coaches. When you're having success, you're going to have people that's, going to talk about you, talk down, and going to hate on you. If you ain't got no haters, you ain't doing something right.
Cat Williams taught us that, didn't he? He said you better get some by the end of summer, but you guys just continue to win games however it's required. And the championship mindset of your group, I just feel like it's evident. And does it matter to you guys how you win games?
Nah, it don't matter, man. As long as we come out up top. We got things we need to clean up, that's always, but, long flight back. Glad we got the dub.
How would you describe Lambeau? I mean, we had 2 hours in countdown, and obviously, Kelsey's the guy that played with you guys for so long, and I just marvel at what this place is. I mean, it's Green Bay. If you've never been here, it sits in the middle of really nowhere. It's a very small town, and it means everything to them. Is it the kind of thing that you guys kind of take in?
Me personally, yeah, man. I enjoy playing in this atmosphere. First time being here, First time playing in it, man. You know, I enjoyed every second of it.
I mean, from what it was described to you as, did it live up to the rep? Because, I mean, like, you know, coming out of the SEC or whatever else, I mean, there's gigantic stadiums, and this one is one of the biggest in the NFL. I just feel like the atmosphere is a singular. I don't think there's anything else quite like it.
I would say it's up there with probably the best places I've been. It's definitely up there.
For you personally, just you got, I don't have my box score in front of me, but I believe you wasn't a lot of offense, but you had a huge first down catch and a touchdown catch. You've been between the Minnesota game and this game, I feel like you're really elevating. Have you felt like things starting to click? Because it's obviously been something people wondered about the passing game, and you've really been excellent of late.
Oh, man, that's just the standard we hold ourselves to in our room, man. You know, when the ball comes to you, make the play. And we pride ourselves on that. We're not making no excuses, you know. No matter what the throw is, if it touch our hands, we expect ourselves to make it. And that's just the standard that we hold ourselves to.
All right. Last thing as it relates to the Eagles, looking at kind of the amount of runway left. This was a huge one potentially for home field. How early does the thought about playing in another great home venue, the Link, how early does thought about the possibility of you having home field throughout the playoffs begin in your room?
We just stay the course, man. We focus on it 1 week at a time. At the end of the day, whether we're in the Link or not, we got to go out there and play our brand of football. That's all it comes down to, no matter where you're playing it.
Okay. You know, I believe you. Like one game at a time, I get it, but I do think that the big picture, you guys know the value of the Link.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Like I say, best fans in the world, man. A lot of teams have a lot of problems when they come to the Link.
Okay, so 7-2 looks like they could be very well playing a home game. The Commanders certainly had problems when they went to the Link last year in the NFC Championship game, but again, you know, without much offense, they won the game last night. Now, one thing about Green Bay, and I'm just anecdotally saying this, they're now 5-3-1. Very middling, you know, record for a team that was, you know, at one point was being talked about as being undefeated. Like when we looked at this matchup at the beginning of the season, oh, wow, you could have two undefeated teams playing in Green Bay in that Monday night game. Didn't work out that way. And sometimes when a team they think they're one player away, and you add Micah Parsons, and he was tremendous in the Washington game. He didn't have big numbers. I think he only had one sack, but you could just see his dominance on the field. Sometimes when you think you're one player away, going back to the Herschel Walker trade with the Vikings, you're not really one player away. And sometimes the chemistry is upset in many ways. And, you know, their defense has been good with him. It's not like the defense has been bad with Micah Parsons, but just the whole team right now, just not scoring enough points. You know, you give up only 10 and you lose the game. Shouldn't happen that way. Shouldn't happen. On to the baseball. And, man, this is one of those where you look at what could happen to these two pitchers and you go, man, what were you guys thinking? It was something like $5,000 or $6,000 that each of them collected to do something that seemed undetectable. You know, you open the inning with a ball. Who's going to know it? But the Feds caught up with them. And Cleveland pitchers Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz indicted over the weekend on charges they took bribes from sports bettors to throw certain types of pitches. They were charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, honest service wire fraud conspiracy. Don't know why that's different, but that's in there. Conspiracy to influence sporting contests by bribery and money laundering. The indictment says they helped two unnamed gamblers in the Dominican Republic win at least $460,000 on bets. Each of them collected relative pennies to help a couple of gamblers win close to $500,000. Jeff Passan broke this story for ESPN, was on yesterday with Dan Patrick explaining all the ramifications of it.
This is really the intersection of gambling and sports and where it allegedly can go wrong. An indictment was unsealed yesterday by the Eastern District of New York, which is the same U.S. Attorney's Office that indicted Damon Jones and Terry Rozier and others involved in a separate alleged gambling scheme. In this case, Luis Ortiz, a Cleveland Guardians pitcher, and Emmanuel Clase, who is widely regarded as one of the best closers in Major League Baseball. Three-time All-Star, two-time Mariano Rivera Reliever of the Year in the American League. Allegedly conspired with bettors to place proposition bets on individual pitches. So, for example, you can bet whether a single pitch is going to be a ball or a strike. And they would get together, according to prosecutors beforehand, and say, this pitch in this inning is going to be a ball. And what would happen is, 10,000 or so dollars would be wagered. Sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less. This allegedly happened a significant number of times, up to the point where the government alleges that more than $400,000 was made on Emmanuel Clase's pitches alone. And then this is something that's going back, Dan, allegedly to May of 2023. Ortiz came in, according to prosecutors, joined the scheme this year, and on June 15th, threw a ball, and was paid $5,000 to do so, and Clase got $5,000 for facilitating it. On June 27th, did that one more time, and the payment was $7,000. Now, Ortiz's attorney came out and said he is completely innocent of all charges. Clase's attorney was not quite as vociferous, but said essentially we will have our day in court. And the whole thing, it's just really interesting to me, Dan, that I'm in Las Vegas right now for a Major League Baseball event when this is happening. And it shows the way that gambling has infiltrated professional sports. And you really do wonder, can the toothpaste be put back in the tube, or is this the new norm?
They don't cap prop bets?
I think it just depends on where you're doing the gambling. And the reason that this was caught in the first place is because there are betting integrity firms out there that track this sort of thing. And they saw that Luis Ortiz had a pretty significant amount of money placed on one of his pitches. And they're like, well, that's interesting. With Clase, I suppose it's a little bit different because he's as good as he is. He's as well known as he is. With Ortiz, it's a little bit different. Nobody knows who Luis Ortiz is. And so it happens a second time. And once it happened the second time, the betting integrity firms flagged the books, and Major League Baseball was informed. And almost immediately, both Ortiz and Clase were placed on non-disciplinary paid leave and have been gone from the Guardian since July. And, regardless of how this turns out in court, the notion that they are going to be back pitching at any point in Major League Baseball seems unlikely.
And I've mentioned this before, that you'll have guys who are on the periphery. They live in a vacuum because they're probably thinking nobody's going to be tracking this. Right. I'm nobody. I can throw this pitch. My buddies can make some money. I get a little kickback here. It's just like Jonte Porter with the Raptors. He's a no-name player, and hey, I got an over/under, and I'm going to, be under. I'm going to take myself out of the game. Terry Rozier, that's the problem. It's not star players.
Absolutely.
It's the guys who don't think anybody's watching, but Vegas has to watch.
Yeah, of course, Vegas has to watch, and frankly, all of us as sports fans should be apoplectic about this. Games are only as good as they are believable.
Yeah.
And the second that you start chipping away at the idea that what we're watching is real, what we're watching is on the up and up, what's the point of watching sports if you don't feel like there's real competition? And it's so interesting to me that it's almost taken gambling to remind us of this point. Why people were so angry about the Houston Astros cheating is because the expectation of fair play, of both sides doing this the right way, and I don't think I even need to use air quotes for that. There is a right way and there is a wrong way. And what the Astros did was wrong. And even though Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, if they did this, could say, hey, it's just one ball, I can get back into the count. Clase in 2024 had one of the best relief seasons in Major League history. Even though all of those things are true. It's just the fact that if this exists at one point, is it not a slippery slope? Hey, I threw one, but I can come back from a 2-0 count. Or if it's the third pitch of an at bat and the guy is down 0-2, I can waste a pitch. I can waste two pitches. And then you get to the point, Dan, where it's like, if you open the door to that, then you're just inviting more and more and more.
That's Jeff Passan of ESPN on this scandal. There is an update on this since they talked, and Major League Baseball has announced that it has authorized gaming operators to cap bets on individual pitches at $200 and exclude them from parlays. So the question Dan asked, okay, you've got all these parlay bets, and you've got two bettors here in the Dominican Republic who won close to $500,000 on it. You got to find a way to get your arms around it. So that's what they've done. Major League Baseball announcing the limits were agreed to by sportsbook operators representing more than 98% of the U.S. betting market. And they said in their statement that pitch-level bets on the outcomes of pitch velocity and balls and strikes, quote, present heightened integrity risks because of that they focus on one-off events that can be determined by a single player and can be inconsequential to the outcome of the game. The risks on these pitch-level markets will be significantly mitigated by this new action targeted at the incentive to engage in this misconduct. So, that's step one. We'll see where this goes. But, yeah, if you want to make a bet like that, first pitch of the third inning, is it a ball or a strike, or will the velocity be under 97 miles an hour or over? You can still make those bets, but they're capped at $200, which would mean that if there is significant money bet on this to win that kind of cash, it would really be flagged, as it is now. But that would be a deterrent on the amount of money that these gamblers could bet on these things, and therefore, even the $5,000-$6,000, whatever these guys were paid to do something stupid like this, that might make it go away. We'll see. The Nationals are finally hiring somebody who's old enough to shave. You have a 32-year-old general manager in Paul Taboni. His top assistant, actually, Taboni is the president of baseball operations. His top assistant, who effectively, I guess, would be the general manager, is 31 years old. They have hired a 33-year-old manager who has not been officially introduced to the media yet because they just had a baby, he and his wife. So I guess he's on technically paternity leave. But Blake Butera is coming in as the manager. You know all of that. They have reportedly hired a bench coach, and this is, I guess, will be his Don Zimmer, though for someone my age, he looks like a relative kid. But they hired the first base coach for the Rays, Michael Johns, and he does have plenty of managerial experience, though it's been in the minor leagues. He's managed 5 affiliates in his career, including Tampa's AAA team in 2023. It should be pointed out that Blake Butera is only coming here with experience as a manager in A-ball. And at 33, how much managerial experience could he have? But Johns, at the age of 50, at least has some experience, and he will sit on the bench and help him to make calls. Again, these are all people in jobs for the first time. As smart and as analytically relevant as he may be, Paul Taboni, again, he's 32 years old. For his manager, he chose a 33-year-old who has never managed above A-ball, and at least for, I guess, his Yoda on the bench next to him, he'll have somebody 50 years old, Michael Johns, who, unfortunately, I think, or maybe it'll all work out, who knows, but seemingly you would want somebody with major league experience more so than a first base coach. The pecking order for coaches in baseball is if the manager gets thrown out, it's the third base coach that takes over. The first base coach is the second option on that. Not that he's not smart, but that's lower on the totem pole than the third base coach. So they've hired the first base coach of the Tampa Bay Rays to be their bench coach, along with the kid, Blake Butera, who has so far not been officially introduced to the media. All right, World Series wrap-up. It's interesting that there are two people who are from this area Both of them grew up in Washington, D.C. Tim Kirchin has worked in Dallas, and maybe has he worked anywhere else? But anyway, he spent most of his life here, raised his family here. And then Tom Boswell, who's native Washingtonian, never left except to go to college. Amherst, came back, went to work for the Washington Post right out of school, and retired a few years ago, but still writes baseball from time to time. Both of them very much excited about the World Series. I actually saw Tim speak at an event last week, talked about how great this series was. This was what he said immediately after it was over on ESPN after being at, as he says, 44 World Series.
This is the greatest World Series that I have ever covered. Game 3 was unbelievably good. The ninth inning of Game 6 was something that nobody's ever seen before. And tonight, we got the 6th extra inning game in a Game 7. This is one of the greatest Game 7s ever played. This series was unbelievably good from the beginning to the end, and just all the storylines that we saw were just incredible. The Blue Jays played so well, and yet the Dodgers still found a way to win this game. This is why baseball is the greatest game ever, and there is nothing in sports better than baseball in October.
Well, one who would agree with that is Tom Boswell. And Boswell, though he's retired, does write columns from time to time, and wrote one over the weekend, which I would like to pull some of the highlights out of it. The lead is, when I covered the World Series for the first time in 1975, baseball was out of step with the explosive emotions of the area. America was divided over the Vietnam War, as well as issues of racial justice and financial fairness. I think the Vietnam War was officially over maybe a couple of weeks after the World Series, as I remember. Tim was in college then. He was at Maryland, so he didn't cover that one. But Boswell made his debut as a World Series coverer for the Washington Post, 1975. He goes on to write, MLB seemed too civil. He's talking about 1975. Too traditional, part of a gentler American past. The NFL suited the time. If pro football seems violent now, you should have seen Dick Butkus. Besides, the NFL had point spreads. Yeah, you can't really have point spreads in baseball. You couldn't legally have point spreads in football. Jimmy the Greek couldn't give them out on TV. In fact, I think Jimmy the Greek hadn't made his debut yet for CBS. I think he started in 76. Not 75. Anyway, more from Boswell. The 1975 World Series, still often cited as the best ever played, changed all that. Sea change would seem to be slow, but sometimes it crashes like a wave. It wasn't just Carlton Fisk's foul ball home run in Game 6 that changed hearts and minds. There were 5 one-run games, the ebb and flow of momentum between the Red Sox and Reds, and the superlative play of a dozen future or near Hall of Famers. Think about that. Think about the two teams. And this is, as he points out, the end of the pre-free agent era. The door opened up in 1976. So this was kind of the last hurrah. You couldn't have kept together the Big Red Machine for as long as they were able to do because you had the reserve clause. They couldn't leave. So that's an important point about 1975. He says the parallels in American culture between the two eras are obvious. Just as in 1976, MLB's labor management balance may be changed soon when the collective bargaining agreement expires in 13 months. If MLB avoids a labor war and instead understands its good fortune and narrows the competitive imbalance between the richest and poorest markets, then good times may lie ahead. Well, we'll see about that. It seems like they're headed for a lockout. It just seems that way. More from Boswell. The 2025 World Series will find its way among the top 6 in history, joining in some order 1975, 1991, which was the Minnesota Twins winning that one. 1924, I guess there's some hometown bias there with the Washington Senators won championship. 2001, that was when Arizona beat the Yankees. In 2016, when the Dodgers won. He says, because this year had just 2 one-run games, both classics, it may look comfortable around number 5 out of 121, but it was just the crescendo. What elevated MLB so much was the entire postseason. For a solid month, baseball showed up. 7 series ended in winner-take-all games, including Seattle eliminating Detroit in 15 innings of glorious torment. Also should be pointed out, in 1975, we only had one round, right? We had the National League Championship Series, American League Championship Series, best of 5, both of them. Then they played the World Series. Totally different ball game now with the postseason. Then he goes on to talk about Shohei Ohtani hitting the 3 homers, striking out 10 in the same game. Then in Game 3 of the World Series, he reached base in all 9 plate appearances with 2 homers, 2 doubles, and 5 walks. He talked about the Blue Jays scoring 9 runs in the 6th inning in Game 1 of the World Series. Or Addison Barger representing the tying run on second base with 1 out in the 9th of Game 6. Barger didn't seem to notice that Dodgers left fielder Kike Hernandez was playing shallow with Andres Jimenez at the plate, but Hernandez had a feeling, and I heard Tim Kirchin talk about that as well. He was told to play deeper, but he went on a hunch and played shallow. So when Jimenez's liner over shortstop should have been a hit, Hernandez grabbed it and in one stumbling improv motion fired to second base to double off Barger. Game over. And then, of course, the story of Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who throws in the mid-90s but commands 6 pitches. He went 5-1 with a 1.45 ERA in 3 games, winning 3 games in the World Series, including 8 outs in relief in Game 7. He finishes up this way. He says the 75 World Series was indelible because of Fisk waving it fair. The 2025 World Series and the whole postseason is synonymous with Ohtani. And he says if you could combine Tom Brady's passing and Lawrence Taylor's sacks or figure out how Wayne Gretzky could play center and goalie simultaneously, you would have Ohtani. And he, goes through the numbers and he says, the best player I'd ever seen was Willie Mays. He had 51 and 52 homer seasons, once stole 40 bases, won 12 gold gloves. He says Ohtani's it. And he compares his numbers with Babe Ruth as a pitcher and a hitter. He says Ohtani, you take him as a hitter. Babe Ruth as a hitter, you take Ohtani as a pitcher. Here's how he sums it up. Baseball won its lottery of rejuvenated popularity. The sport has to survive its long history of self-inflicted wounds because of greed. But if it does, if better competitive balance arrives, then MLB, the splendid game, not the business, is in fine shape to bring us many more seasons of excruciating magnificence. That's a good phrase. Excruciating magnificence. All right, that is it for me. Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.